Hello Dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 5 Part 4, the Supreme Law of the Land. The main idea behind this civics lesson is the Constitution created a strong national government with divided and checked powers, and provided for flexibility and change. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you will be able to summarize the major sections of the Constitution and explain the three main principles in the Constitution that limit the government's power. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. The Constitution establishes our form of government, a republic. As you recall from Lesson 5, a republic is a government in which citizens elect their representatives. As the supreme law of the land, the Constitution protects the rights of citizens by providing general rules that the national government and the state governments must follow. Following the preamble, the framers laid out a plan for our government. This plan is organized into 7 parts called articles. Some of the key ideas in the articles are described in the following video. Article 1 describes the organization and powers of the national legislature called the Congress of the United States. Congress is divided into 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The most important power of Congress is to make laws. A proposed law, called a bill, must gain a majority vote in both houses of Congress before it goes to the President for approval. If the President signs the bill, it becomes law. The President may veto or reject the bill. However, Congress has the final word. A vetoed bill can still become law if Congress votes on it again, with 2/3 of the members of each house approving it. The powers given or delegated to Congress are known as delegated powers. Most of these delegated powers, such as the power to coin money, to declare war, and to regulate trade, are specifically listed in Article 1, Section 8. However, not all of Congress's powers are listed. Congress may also make laws that are necessary and proper for carrying out the powers that are listed. By using the words necessary and proper, the framers wanted to give the government flexibility to carry out its work and change with the times. However, this flexible wording, sometimes called the elastic clause, troubled the anti-federalists and continues to bother Americans who worry that Congress might abuse its powers. It is important to note, however, that Article 1 also limits the government's power by stating which actions Congress may not take. While the powers of the legislative branch are shared by hundreds of members of Congress, the framers gave the power of the executive branch to one person, the President. By establishing the office of President, they created something very new in the world, a leader who has some of the strengths of a monarch, but whose authority is based on the consent of the people. In order to continue in office after their 4-year term, both the President and the Vice President have to be re-elected. The painful memory of the colony's experience with King George of England was still fresh in the framers' minds. To avoid having another monarch, they made it clear that the President's job is to execute or carry out the laws, not to make them. The President may make treaties, but they are only binding if approved by the Senate. The President may also nominate judges, but the Senate has the right to reject the President's nominees. The Constitution is far less specific on the office of President than it is on the national legislature. There had never been a president before, and most delegates to the Constitutional Convention believed that George Washington would be elected as the first president and that he would best create the office, setting an example for later presidents. Although each state had its own courts, the framers wanted a national court system to settle disputes between states. The framers agreed that neither Congress nor the President should control the national courts. Accordingly, The President nominates judges, but the Senate must approve the nominations. Once appointed, judges may serve for life as long as they demonstrate good behavior. One of the most important contributions of the framers was the creation of the Supreme Court. This court has the final say in all cases involving the Constitution. Important cases on which lower courts disagree can be appealed to the Supreme Court for a final decision, thus ensuring that legal issues affecting the nation will not be left unsettled. To ensure that the rights of the states are respected, each state must honor the laws of other states. A New York marriage license, for instance, is valid in any other state. Requiring states to respect each other's laws helps preserve each state's rights and reduces the possibility of conflict between the states. The framers knew that future Americans might want to change the Constitution. Therefore, they included in the Constitution instructions for making amendments or changes. To ensure that each change reflects the will of the people, 3/4 of the states must approve an amendment. In Lesson 7, you will learn more about the amendment process. When you read the Constitution, you will see that a series of amendments follow the 7 articles. The first 10 amendments, ratified in 1791, are called the Bill of Rights, and were added in response to the concerns of the Anti-Federalists. Since the approval of the Bill of Rights, only 17 other amendments have been added. Clearly, the Constitution has stood the test of time. You will read more about the Bill of Rights and the other amendments in Lesson 7. Since both the state and national governments may pass laws, the framers wanted to avoid any uncertainty about which laws take priority. Therefore, Article 6 requires officials in state and national government to take an oath to support the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. No state law may violate the Constitution. Also, if a state law conflicts with a federal or national law, the federal law takes priority. The last article of the Constitution establishes the procedure for ratification or approval of the Constitution. Ratification required approval of conventions in at least 9 states. The Constitution creates a government with powers limited by consent of the people. It is based on the idea of popular sovereignty, letting the people rule. 3 main principles limit the government's power: federalism, separation of powers, and checks and balances. The Constitution establishes the principle of federalism, the division of power between the states and the federal or national government. Under federalism, some powers belong only to the national government, some powers belong only to the states, and some are shared by both. Article 1 describes the delegated powers, those that belong to Congress. A number of these powers, such as the power to coin money or declare war, are denied to the states. Some of the powers given to Congress are not denied to the states. For instance, the states too can collect taxes, establish courts, and borrow money. The powers shared by the federal and state governments are known as concurrent powers. The 10th Amendment declares that the states have reserved powers, those powers that the Constitution neither gives to Congress nor denies to the states. For example, 2 of the powers not mentioned in the Constitution that are reserved to the states are the authority to establish schools and to form police organizations. By dividing power between the federal and state governments, the system of federalism gives the federal government the authority it needs while helping to protect each state's rights. This system also allows the federal government to deal with issues affecting all citizens, while each state government can better serve the particular needs of its people. Under our Constitution, power is not only divided between the state and federal governments, it is also divided within the federal government. Dividing power among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches helps prevent any one branch from abusing its power. Another way the Constitution protects against abuse of power in the federal government is through checks and balances. This system gives each of the three branches of government ways to limit the powers of the other two. For instance, the House can impeach or accuse the president or other high officials of serious wrongdoing. If found guilty in a trial by the Senate, the official will be removed from office. The president can check the actions of Congress by vetoing bills that are not in the best interest of the nation. Meanwhile, the judicial branch checks the power of the other two branches by determining whether laws passed by Congress or actions taken by the president are constitutional. By checking and balancing each other, the three branches of government ensure that they work together for the welfare of citizens. So that's the way it is with Lesson 5, Part 4, the supreme law of the land. At this point, you should know that the 6 goals of the federal government are built into the 7 articles of the Constitution. Each branch of the federal government has responsibilities that are unique to it. And federalism, separation of powers, and checks and balances each contribute to limiting the power of the federal government. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of civics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons. See ya!